and welcome to the MAAAAARTHAA podcast universe. And you know what that podcast is about, Jordan?
It exists to prove people wrong when they say sequels are never better than the originals.
Yes, it does. And today, we're going to be putting that question to the test.
Yeah, seriously.
We're talking about the DCEU, and last week we talked about Man of Steel, the first entry, and this week we talk about Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now with us, we have, for the first time ever, a returning guest to our show.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
It's Jeremy
Wow.
Eden, who you may know from our Jurassic Park 3 episode or the wonderful 90 Under 90 podcast. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me alone. Normally, I would be joined by my co-host and brother Dan for this type of a thing. And when I said, "Hey, I'm talking about BVS with Micah," he's like, "That's okay. I don't need to talk about that anymore." And I was like, "Fair enough. I'll handle this one solo, bro."
You still have some stuff you need to say.
I have
Apparently.
I have so much to say.
That's great.
Awesome.
So much to say about this.
So, okay, right off the bat, because I'm chomping at the bits, as I can tell by your expression. Have you seen both versions? So for our audience, if you don't know, there's the theatrical version, 2.5 hours long, and then there is the ultimate cut, which is 3 hours long. Have you seen both versions?
I have seen both versions. I watched the ultimate cut for this. You said you were not. You had planned to not watch it, but were kind of forced into watching it, as I understand.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it was always my plan all along because when I saw the theatrical cut, I was sitting in the theater, and my thought was, "Huh." For most of the movie. And then I was just like, I honestly, I don't know how I feel about it. I have to give it a second go. And then, when it came time for home video release, they had the ultimate cut, and I was like, okay, let me watch that and see. And that went to, oh, okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So yeah, I prefer the ultimate cut. I
Yeah.
can sit through 3 hours. I have, Michael, we talked on when you were on our show last time. Sometimes you like to just sit back and let a movie, do its thing, do your thing with the movie. I'm trying to keep it fairly clean here. And so yeah, I have no problem with those slow burn movies, a 3 hour movie. If that's what we're going for, all right, I'll sit back. I'll get into this. Let's do it.
Okay. This is great. So Jordan,
Yeah.
let the audience know your experience with this.
This was my first and only time watching it. So, never seen the theatrical, and as we were watching this ultimate cut, Micah was like, "Oh, this is actually making more sense a little bit for some of the stuff." And I would turn to him periodically throughout the movie and say, "What makes sense about this?" It was, to me, it felt like a movie, as it's going, like, this looks really good. I'm tracking, I think, but then when I start to think about what is actually going on, I have no idea what's going on besides bad guy, good guy.
It's very convoluted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the thing I have now realized after watching this movie, because I think it's pretty safe to say that the ultimate cut bumps it up like if we're doing like a 10-point rating system, I think the ultimate cut gives it an extra point. And I'm someone, besides Lord of the Rings, I usually don't like director's cuts. I usually think they suck for the most part.
Isn't the Watchmen director's cut like the cut, though?
The Watchmen cut, well, I haven't seen the theatrical, but I like the Watchmen cut.
I've not seen director's cut.
And then with this whole Justice League thing, which we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks, I just think I've come to the conclusion that Snyder is a person that needs like 3 hours to tell a story.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too. Yeah, it seems like he does better when they're just like, let him take his time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And better being a relative term, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first saw this movie, so there's so much that
I know. I mean, let's all three take a deep breath here because I feel like we're going.
Yeah.
We have a lot to explore here, and I feel like I have so much to like say that is a preface before I can even get into
I
what
know.
Yeah.
But
So
of course, I'll obviously.
Well, I'll just say too, my preface is much quicker because I
okay,
haven't
great.
seen it. This was my first time, and the reason it was my first time is because I avoided it.
Yeah.
So Man of Steel came out, and it was like, oh, I'll see it because Christopher Nolan's involved right after The Dark Knight Rises. Saw it, and it was like, okay, I mean, I just saw that was just a Marvel movie, so I wasn't very interested in anything else. And then this came out, didn't care. Suicide Squad came out, hated it, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And then I was like, I don't need to see any of these movies. That's my preface.
Okay. And that's a great preface. So for me, first of all, I do want to say because we have been going over the Batman conglomerate, starting with Michael Keaton over this year. So I should hearken the bells that this is kind of a big deal episode because this is our last true Batman movie until, well, I don't know if we'll cover Pattinson because that's not really attached to a franchise. So
yeah,
ring the bell to that. And then when you're done ringing, listen to this preface I have. Now, when I first saw this, I was completely out on Marvel, and any eagle-eared listener will know that we were out on Marvel. We came back around in Phase 3. We rewatched the series, and for the most part, we just adore it.
Yeah.
For the most part. But then, at the time when this came out the same year that Captain America Civil War came out, which was your two main heroes, Iron Man and Captain America, versus each other in the same year that Batman and Superman.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's interesting.
And Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there was a very distinct but subliminal push that, okay, Marvel's over here, and that's your popcorn, but this movie is like an auteur made this movie.
I think there's a lot of the auteur label probably gets applied to Snyder more. Here's one of my prefaces, which I'll say because, and I'm gonna unpack this as succinctly as possible. I'm not a Zack Snyder fan, nor am I somebody who's against Zack Snyder. I've never seen 300. I've never seen any of I never saw Dawn of the Dead. I saw Watchmen once, didn't care whatsoever. So like, I'm not a guy who's like all about Zack Snyder. I saw Man of Steel and I was like, okay. Like I also don't have a major attachment to Superman. I'm obviously familiar with Superman, but I don't have like, I'm not like, oh, it's all about Christopher Reeve or, like I'm not a, like Brandon Routh or, I don't think anybody's ringing Dean Cain's bell, but so yeah, like I had no attachment to Superman either. I was in it for the Batman, and that's, there are 4 constants in my life that will never go, diamond absolutes, if you will, as Bruce Wayne would say in this movie. Things that will never go away in my life. There's the Muppets, there's Weird Al, there's Lego, and there's Batman. And it's like, nice. I don't care what you're trying to sell me. Batman's involved. All right, I'm there. I'm for it. I'm going to do everything that I can to enjoy it. I'm going to go out of my way to enjoy it, which is what I have to do with this movie, is go out of my way to find a way to make it work. And that's really what I want to say before we get into anything, is that I am not here to change anyone's opinion of this movie. If you think this is a good movie, you're right. If you think this is a terrible movie, you're right. Like, they're both completely valid. I am only here to support the underdog and provide a take that I think could make this work.
Okay.
But, as far as the auteurism, I do know that, like, a lot of people love the Zack Snyder visual style, and, he's certainly a man who seems to treat it more as an art form as opposed to, just a craft, or, like Marvel does there, James Gunn maybe aside, it doesn't feel like there's anything in Marvel that feels particularly artsy.
Yeah.
This does feel like, successful or not, they're trying to paint a grander picture here.
Definitely.
Than anything that Marvel is doing, even in their biggest, Endgame is not as grand as even this movie makes itself seem, you know?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So all of that packaged into this preface, I felt like when I went and I know when I went and saw it, I was out on Marvel, and Captain America was going to come out in May, I believe, and this movie's coming out in March, and I just go, this movie looks cool, and I go, this is the series that's going to like do superheroes right. Of course, I will say it again, little did I know I would rewatch the Marvel stuff and then just love it so much.
And now you read several Marvel comics a day.
I do. Usually 3 or 4 Amazing
Such a
Spider-Mans
fanboy.
every day. And
Yeah.
yeah. But so having said that, I went to the theater. I went by myself. It was totally packed. I went after I got off work at the Rogue Air Trampoline Park. And I was just like, I'm excited. I'm going on a date by myself. And, you know, the movie had come out. It had this historic box office drop, which we'll talk about in a second. And the critics were like, this is terrible. But then there were fans that were saying, this is like the best. So I said, I'm just going to go and watch it for myself. I sit down, I watch it, and the whole movie, I'm pretty much tracking. Things are confusing, definitely. But, you know, I'm trusting the movie. You know, like if this movie came out today, I don't think I would trust it as much as I trusted it back then.
Right.
But I'm trusting it, and I'm like, yeah, this is kind of cool until the third act of the movie, and then it just totally lost me. And I don't mean I couldn't follow it. I mean, I just totally lost interest in the movie, and I was kind of like, oh, I enjoyed about 60% of that. And then the more I thought about it, the more I convinced myself that it was really, really bad.
Yeah.
And that led up to us watching it last night.
Well, I
Ultimate
remember when this came out, you know, I didn't see it, but I heard a lot from a lot of people, you included, saying it's really good until the end and it ruins everything.
That's how I felt. And I still kind of think that because I think the movie is gearing up and I'm digging the motives of Superman and Batman, but all of the Doomsday stuff and literally everything Lex Luthor is bad. But we're going to get into that specifically. I was logging this movie on Letterboxd, and I said, I think Jesse Eisenberg, I would put in the top 5, if not the number 1 most miscast / worst performance in a comic book movie. And I know that's a huge statement, but I do mean it. I think he's so bad.
You're not wrong. Like this is a big performance, and he's going for something that does not belong in this movie at all. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Completely miscast. And again, I have no attachment to Lex Luthor. You know, I'm not one of these guys who's like, Bryan Cranston's, you know, a bald man of age, and therefore he should play Lex Luthor because, you know, like that's what everybody was saying at the time. And then all of a sudden they're like, Jesse Eisenberg. And we're like, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of this was just like the viewing of this movie and like the release and even the marketing of this movie. You're just like, huh?
Yeah.
Like you want to give it all away in the first trailer? Like everything. Like, okay. Really, there must be surprises in this movie, right? No? Okay. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
I remember too that so when this movie came out, all the stuff, you know, Superman dies, and then pretty soon after they just released the cast for Justice League.
While this was in theaters, they released,
and Henry Cavill is listed in the cast.
No, not just that. They released posters of
that's
the
right.
Justice League with Superman front and center.
Yeah.
And we all know that he is not going to be dead forever.
But there's no element of suspense.
But yeah, there was not even like we're going to pretend or we're going to like make it a fun twist in the next movie. It was like, no, you will go see Justice League and you will know going into it that one of the major plot points will be bringing Superman back.
Yeah.
And I think that knowing what we kind of know about Zack Snyder, especially with the Snyder Cut, it seems almost to me like this was, you know, like it has never been reported as such, but it seems like almost this was intended to be 2 movies in and of itself. Like this whole,
it does feel like that.
There are 2 completely different things going on here with the Batman versus Superman and then this Doomsday stuff. Yep. And you're rushing to do both of them in the same, like, you know, on I've just been watching all of the Star Wars movies again because of our Patreon show.
Yeah.
Not to try and plug that too much, but so
We
like
should. I hear it has a great intro music.
it's true. One written by somebody you guys both might really like. Yes, and thank you for that, by the way, Michael. I love hearing it every time.
Oh, it was so fun.
But yeah, watching Revenge of the Sith, it's the same thing where it's just like, oh man, we're racing to get to something that like should have been like, and that's the other thing too, is the fact that this was all mapped out for 5 movies, and it's like some of it is confusing, and some of it's like great. That's great elements, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Well, because it almost feels like this movie, like movie 1 is Batman v Superman. Movie 2 is Dawn of Justice, where you have Wonder Woman come in and then they fight Doomsday and Lex Luthor. But I mean, I really, really dislike the whole Doomsday storyline. But that's jumping ahead of the curve. So if we have our prefaces out of the way, I think I'll talk a little bit about the making of the movie.
Okay.
Well, I think the last thing I want to do is I want to get if I can, because obviously I haven't had a chance to hear the episode yet. Can you guys give me a quick, brief rundown of your Man of Steel opinions?
Yeah.
Because that kind of frames a lot of my take on this.
As it stands now, when you hear the episode, you'll hear about what we originally thought when we first saw it. But as it stands now, I think it's like kind of good. I really like all of the stuff on Kryptonite, or Krypton. But my problem with the movie is that, and my problem with this series actually is like we never have a movie where Superman is like a legit moral good guy. He's always gray, and I know that's their take. And I'm not even a big Superman guy either. But it's just like you're taking what he represents, and you're not even like doing that part of his story. So like when he kills Zod at the end, when I first saw it, I was like, this is so cool. They're doing this in a comic book movie. Now I watch it and I'm like, so Superman just kills people if he has to? Like that's like Spider-Man murdering someone. You can't do that. So that's how I feel about that movie. It's like a solid 5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah. I think for me, it's just like such an okay movie to the point where it's pretty forgettable. Because I just think you can lump it in with a lot of like phase 2 Marvel movies. It's just like are really okay and fine. And I feel like for that movie, I feel like it was way too long. The Lois Lane stuff sucked so bad. And there just wasn't, there was just such big chunks of time of like, I'm watching a superhero movie. Can we have some action, please? Of course, you get the big fight at the end. You're always going to get the big fight at the end.
Right.
But it was just like so okay. That being said, I also like know nothing about Superman other than Kryptonite's bad.
Okay.
That's for me and Superman.
Okay. Great. That puts me in a
what's
good
your
position.
what's your little paragraph about it?
I think I will get into that when I present to you my take. The only thing I'll say as we get into this is that you referred to this as a Batman movie, but I would say that you need to frame this as a sequel to Man of Steel.
Okay.
And
sure.
That will help solve a lot of the problems, first of all, in terms of just accepting a lot of the Batman stuff. But I think that going forward, when we get to my take, that's kind of where I am with it, and we'll get to that.
Well,
yeah.
I'll let you do your thing like you guys do.
Well, and now I have to point this out.
I know this is preface the episode.
This is I can already tell this is a great episode of ours because we're really getting into it. I will say that one of the Ultimate Cut things, and I looked up the differences before because it had been so long since I saw the theatrical.
Yeah, same.
I remember walking out of the movie and being like, man, and I'm using this in a sarcastic way, like, I wish Superman was in this movie where his name is in the title. Because I remember him just not really being in the movie that much. And when I watched it last night, I didn't notice that at all. And then I realized that they added quite a few scenes in the Ultimate Cut that have him, like going to Gotham and investigating stuff. And then even just extra shots that were like, oh yeah, Superman's here. So, I mean, maybe that's another reason why in my head, it's like, oh, this is a Batman movie and Superman's in it. Because I don't remember it having that much Superman. They just talk about him a lot. It's how the theatrical felt.
Yeah. And it certainly does feel like Zack Snyder has more love for Batman as
Yeah.
for what Batman is given in this movie to do, like
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, I'm with you there. I can see how that mistake could be made, or how one could make that interpretation. But like, yeah, I think everybody seems to forget. Like, this is the sequel to Man of Steel, and for all intents and purposes, it is Man of Steel 2: Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Yeah.
The ultimate cut.
Yeah.
You almost wonder if the movie would have. This is crazy to say, but you almost wonder if it had a better title, if people would have liked the movie a little more. The title of this movie is so bad.
You lose credibility instantly with this title. Like, you really do. Like, it's oof. Like, okay,
Batman
that's a mouthful.
v Superman?
Yeah.
Not versus, which we'll talk about how he fought for that.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So the movie's directed by Zack Snyder. We know this. It's written by David S. Goyer and Chris Terrio. We've been talking about Goyer a lot because of Dark Knight, but Chris Terrio, and you might notice an interesting pattern with his filmography. He's got Argo. Okay, that's from what I remember, a well-written movie. He has Rise of Skywalker, from what I remember, of a movie I enjoy a lot, but a very poorly written movie.
Yeah.
He has Justice League, a movie that has two different versions, both of which very poorly written. So Chris Terrio.
So you're saying not a very good writer?
Maybe he's not my cup of tea.
Okay.
Or maybe he needs to stick to nonfiction. Maybe that's the...
Yeah.
We have the music by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL. We've talked about Junkie XL. He did Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes.
I think we'll get into the score a little bit as we go. Larry Fong did the cinematography, and he's done the cinematography for 300, Watchmen, Sucker Punch, Kong Skull Island, Super 8, amongst others.
Okay. Cool.
And I will say, even last night, we were watching it, and I go, this movie is beautiful. I love how it looks. It's great. Movie comes out March 25th, 2016. It has a budget of $263 million. Domestically, it makes $330 million. And worldwide, it makes $872 million. Now,
so what is this drop-off thing you spoke of?
Yes. So this had... So both inside and both inside and outside
this opening weekend.
Of the U.S., Batman v Superman experienced a notable poor Friday to Sunday, and it set a new record for the worst Friday to Sunday drop for a superhero movie in modern cinema, with a 58% decline.
Whoa!
So just from Friday to Sunday, and that was previously
word travels fast.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
and that was previously held by 2015's Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Which, I mean, we can say that's a much worse movie than this movie.
Yeah.
Fantastic?
Fantastic, yes. And then this has a 68.4% decline in its second weekend, and that's one of the biggest drops ever.
That is an embarrassing... Like, I'm not even a big box office guy, but I mean, like, I heard those numbers and I was like, I felt bad for the movie.
Yeah.
I was in pain.
And ultimately, Warner Brothers counted this, they chalked it up as a loss. Even though it gets close to $900 million, like a movie like this, you do kind of need it to make $1 billion.
Yeah.
For it to be a hit.
A movie called, a movie with Batman and Superman in the title should make $1.5 billion. Like,
it really should, yeah.
It really should. $1.5 billion, like, globally.
Well, and I think Civil War, which, again, it can't be stressed enough, Iron Man, until that series, was a B-rate Marvel character, and that movie made, like, $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
$1,151,918,521.
So this movie technically bombed in that way.
Yes.
And what's just interesting is when Star Wars, like when Solo technically bombed as well.
Yeah.
Like Disney rethought things.
Yes.
And like took stuff back. How come Warner Brothers didn't do the same thing? Is it because too much was in development?
Well, I think in a way you're sort of, I would argue against that, actually.
Okay.
Because This movie comes out and it's so dour. One of the complaints at the time was like, this is a really dour movie where people are just brooding all the time. Yeah. And so what happens? They cut a new trailer for Suicide Squad that makes it look like this is going to be the most fun you've had in theaters.
Doing that. Yeah.
They do it. They then have the editors of the trailer make the movie, and it doesn't make any sense at all.
That's right. That's right.
And then
they just
say,
franchise.
They just say, Patty Jenkins, just do whatever you want for Wonder Woman.
Right.
And it's a huge success. Right. And then they go, hey, James Wan, do whatever you want for Aquaman, and it's a huge success. They say the same thing with Shazam.
Yeah.
And the only one that messes up since then really is Justice League, which has all hosts of problems.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting.
But yeah, so one of the common kind of thematic readings on this movie is that it is about 9/11, which, having read that thematic, seeing that people think that about the movie and watching it, that was pretty interesting because you have like this city being destroyed, and then you have this people saying there are aliens, aka people from other countries, coming into our country. We have to exterminate them. We have to get them out of here.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was sort of interesting. Okay, so in 2006, David Goyer was quoted as saying, he said this exactly.
In 2006?
In 2006, when they're working on Batman, The Dark Knight, I think, would be... No, Batman Begins. They'd be working on Batman Begins. Goyer
Batman
says,
Begins would have been out, and like, it would have been, because Batman Begins was 05.
Oh, right.
Yes, okay, that's right.
So they would have been working on Dark Knight at that time.
Okay.
So during that time, in an interview or something, he says, quote, Batman vs. Superman, a Batman vs. Superman film is where you go when you admit to yourself that you've exhausted all possibilities. An admission that this franchise is on its last gasp. And he's one of the writers to this movie.
Has he written any other movies in this franchise? No?
I think he's one of the writers on Justice League.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Look, David Goyer gets too much work off of
he does.
Like old good work that he did. David Goyer is a good example of how like credibility in Hollywood for one thing will go a long way. Like, because I think he's had more stinks than he's had success.
Right, and we're happy to smell the stinks if we get the big success that is the Dark Knight trilogy, but maybe we cool it on the stink for a little bit.
Sure, I'm for that.
And then I'm almost done here, but Affleck was originally hesitant because of his experience playing Daredevil and that movie doing poorly. And it was a huge backlash when he was cast. And people were, of course, the standard when anyone's cast for Batman, sending Warner Brothers death threats and all that jazz.
Yeah.
The classic thing that our society has a tendency to do for some reason. And then after this movie, Hans did a little interview, and he said, I'm not going to do superhero movies again. I don't have anything else to say. And then last year, he came out with Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh my gosh.
And finally, they did consider having a 70mm release of the film, which is another way of me kind of bringing up that they were trying to position this as an auteurist thing as opposed to a superhero film.
Yeah.
And those are my notes on the Dawn of Justice. I'm going to drink some water.
Okay, so to go through actors, so we have not covered Ben Affleck before.
No.
Okay, well, he plays Batman, everyone. He's, Good Will Hunting, The Town, Argo.
Argo would be his latest, greatest success probably before this movie, right?
Gone Girl? When did Gone Girl come out?
Oh, Gone Girl's 14.
But I think we're all forgetting The Way Back.
That came out last year.
That movie, I remember. Oh, the movie did so terribly.
No movies came out last year. If a movie came out last year, it happened in your mind.
Yeah,
that is how it feels for certain.
It genuinely does.
Yeah. So then we also have Jeremy Irons, who plays Alfred. He is in the Watchmen TV show. And I thought he was really good in that.
He's Scar too.
Oh yeah, that's right. He's Scar. That's right. He's in Dead Ringers, the Assassin's Creed movie, Better Start Running, Red Sparrow. That's a couple highlights of his.
Have you guys watched the Die Hard series on your show yet?
Not yet.
No.
Have you ever seen Die Hard with a Vengeance?
I don't think I've seen that one.
You have?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's the one with
though.
Samuel L. Jackson and Jeremy Irons is the villain. And for my money, Jeremy Irons is doing the best version of the Riddler that you've ever seen on film in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Very cool.
Okay. Is
I watched
he
that movie
on the phone? Is he the phone booth guy?
He sets up like these intricate puzzles throughout the city that John McClane has to solve. And I'm I was watching it just on a whim at my dad's one time, a couple of years ago or a few years back. And I was just like, man, this is like the Riddler. Everything that he's doing is like the Riddler. And I was like, this is my favorite Riddler performance. I mean, I'm a big Jim Carrey fan, but this is my favorite Riddler performance. I don't care that
awesome.
Yeah. So if you ever watch that series, keep that in mind. It's a Batman movie where Batman is got no costume and the Riddler wears a blue tank top, if I remember correctly.
I love that.
We do need to do that series sometime. It's
yes,
so
we do,
strange.
We do. Yeah, we will.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And we also have Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman, of course. So not just being that. What else has she actually been in? This is the only thing I've ever seen her in.
Fast and Furious.
She is?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's in a few of those. I've never seen any of those. I just know that she's from that, and that's all I know she's from.
I've seen one.
I mean, just a ton of action stuff. 999,
Ralph
Criminal.
Breaks the Internet.
Is she in that?
Yeah, she plays Shank.
Whoa. Cool. She's in Night and Day and Date Night, so I have seen her in other stuff. I just don't remember her. And then have we done Holly Hunter before?
Yeah. Well, that was on Patreon, so no, we haven't.
So, that's right.
We covered Incredibles.
Okay, so Holly Hunter is in she's in Succession and she's awesome.
Oh man.
She's also in The Big Sick and she's awesome.
Oh man, she's good.
She's in other things such as
The Incredibles. Incredibles 2.
If you've listened to it on Patreon, let's just stop there.
She's so good.
And then
we got to talk about
Jesse Eisenberg,
Mr. Facebook himself.
Yes. So, for those who somehow don't know, he's in The Social Network, Zombieland, Squid and the Whale, The Double.
Now You See Me. Now You See Me Too.
Yep.
So, and he is in The Art of Self-Defense, which came out a couple of years ago, and that's a great movie. And a lot of people haven't seen that. So, I'd encourage people, if you want a very odd, independent movie to watch, that's a good one.
Very good.
It's very weird. But the kind of weird we like over here at the MPU. Let's kick this off and talk about Jesse Eisenberg.
Okay.
I mean, how do we even begin to talk about this performance?
Drugs. I think you need a little bit of drugs to kind of really get into it because it's insane. This is insane. Who would make these choices for a movie that takes itself so seriously? It makes no sense.
This is a man you do not want to pick a fight with.
No, that's not bad.
Performance feels like he is obviously trying way too hard to do something new, and everyone on set, including Zack Snyder, is like, "This has to be good. It's so weird." And they all went with it.
Thought, yeah.
And I don't know what Jesse Eisenberg is like to work with in general, but it's almost like I could see a world where he may be a difficult person, and they're just like, "Oh, we're done giving him tips. We just let Jesse go."
Yeah, but let him bury himself is not a good philosophy for a director to take.
No. Well, I'm pretty shocked that he has been in they plan to use him still. Because this universe is in such disarray, and they're kind of every time a movie comes out in this universe, it feels like they're kind of soft rebooting anything that was in these first 3 films. Mm-hmm. And so to me, it makes sense for them to be just recast him. Because he's so bad. Although maybe contractually they can't.
No, yeah, you can get out of they can look if they did not have to cast Billy D. Williams in Batman Forever, you can get out of contracts.
That's true. That's true. That still sucks. That would have been cool to see him in that.
I don't know if it would have been cool in 1995. It may have been cool right on the heels of 89. I don't know. I don't know where Billy D. Williams was in 1995. He was completely off my radar.
I just feel bad that he signed up to do Batman so that he could be Two-Face one day, and he never got to do it. That's just sad.
It'll be a fine idea to play that Two-Face. Sure, one day I'd love to play Harvey Dent again.
Pretty good.
Sometimes I have to do that just to, especially when we're talking about Jesse Eisenberg. Like, let me clear my own palate.
Well, and you said something, Jordan, that really stuck with me. Every time he's on screen, he monologues. And he's monologuing about, no, you didn't say this part, but he says, he talks about philosophy, a lot of like God talk.
Yeah.
And you said, when he's on the top of the LexCorp tower at the end, you said, none of the things he says make any sense.
No.
And I started thinking back and I was like, yeah, you're right.
And they're not making
this is like a college kid who just got out of college and like wants to show that they took a philosophy class.
That's a great way. But I had a similar take on the way that a lot of the dialogue is written, which is like, it's cool dialogue written by somebody who's not that cool. Funny dialogue by somebody who doesn't know how to make a joke. It's like there's some disconnect, and something feels so disingenuous about a lot of the dialogue as it's written on the page. It just feels like this doesn't feel like there's any truth to this, and there's not.
No, it makes it. I'm not even making it like he's so crazy. He says crazy things. It's like, no, he's supposed to be profound, I guess. It's like he watched Fight Club for the first time and is really inspired by it, but totally missed all of it.
I mean, that's the take. We can pack up the episode now.
Now, this is not part of my take, but one could actually even look at this movie and say that that's almost the point of his character, is like he's so like he is exactly what you were describing, is like that young guy who thinks he's a lot further advanced than he really is because his dad named the company after him and now he's in charge of it, but really he doesn't know jack about anything, and he's just putting on airs. I like that.
I do like how the first time we're introduced to him, he's shooting hoops.
He's cool, Micah.
Shooting hoops in a sports blazer.
Yeah.
Just
with his
some
really
of the decisions,
bad wig.
Yeah, some of the decisions in this film are just like, they're so bewildering beyond. And any listener will know that we try not to get stuck on like silly things, But this movie like kind of demands for you to make fun of it in a lot of ways, because people just do things that defy any sort of logic, and you're like, okay, I guess I'm gonna leave the theater and talk about Grammy's peach tea for a while.
Well, it's like I asked you, like, this feels like a character that's usually older, and you said he is, like in the comic books. So it's like, okay, we want to cast down, like we want him to be younger. Okay, fine, that's fine. But it's like he's going to be a cool tech startup guy, and it's like, is that supposed to be relatable? Is that supposed to be interesting? Because like we're all saying, it's just not well written.
Yeah,
and it's just none of it's good, and his acting choices are just like, ugh, he's so bad. It's not even like, I feel like he's trying really hard not to be Jesse Eisenberg, which is kind of when he's best in his roles. Well, that he loses himself.
The thing that actors need to remember, coming from a guy who is not an actor, is that not everyone is Daniel Day-Lewis, and some people have their shtick, and they just have to use that shtick whenever they're in a movie. And he's one of those people.
And he's done really cool,
and he's done
stuff
that is really different, but it has to be like a Jesse Eisenberg type of role. It can't just be like, you're gonna not be you.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think there are actors who can completely disappear, and that is their shtick. And then there are actors who is like, no, I bring a very specific ingredient to this movie, and that's the entree that everybody is coming for. It's like, there's like other actors can, take leftovers and turn it into something, and somebody's like, no, you're getting a burger, and it's going to be a damn good burger, but it's just a burger,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, you're not going to hire, like, for this time in his career, you're not going to hire Tom Cruise to do like a dramatic historical drama. At a time in his career, yes, but right now he's an action guy. That's why you hire him.
Yeah.
Or he hires you,
run.
Really. He can run, and
because
that's what we want to see.
He can, and frankly needs to run.
Yes.
I mean, it's just, I think that Tom Cruise has whatever they put in the bus in Speed. Somebody put that in Tom Cruise, and he just has to keep at a certain speed his entire life. Or if he goes below a certain heart rate, he blows up.
He's
Yep.
he's like that episode of Futurama where Bender has that bomb in him, where if he stops dancing, he'll explode and die. That's Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He is Bender from Futurama. We nailed it.
I guess that's the same as the Speed analogy. I just kind of stole it because we've been rewatching Futurama.
It's all good. It's more relatable to not everybody is familiar with Speed, you know.
So
the movie, not the drug.
Yeah, everybody's
right.
familiar with the
Everybody's
drug.
familiar with that.
So do you want to set up your take, or should we just start going through the movie?
Let's go through the movie, and then I will summarize a way that to make it work for
Great.
potentially anybody.
Okay.
And potentially nobody at the same time.
So the movie begins, and we're seeing the ground level destruction of Metropolis from the Man of Steel in sequence.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
All of this, I walk into the theater, I see this, and I go, yeah, baby. This is cool, especially at this time. Like, I mean, I guess Civil War sort of addresses these issues. But like, you had all these movies where superheroes were destroying stuff, and none of the movies were addressing the fact that like billions of people are probably dying.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, this is really interesting. And right away, Bruce Wayne is driving through the city, and he's telling people to get out of his building. I don't know why they haven't evacuated yet, but and that crazy alien machine is going off, and we're just seeing it from a different angle. And I guess, like you said, this feels like, oh, this is a sequel to Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Like if you miss that movie, you're missing out.
Yeah. And I thought I loved this device too. Like, I thought that it would have been a great idea if you were going to launch all sorts of, a whole Justice League franchise from this, to use that as the branch point, to where like you see it from Batman's perspective, you see it from Wonder Woman's perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And in their movies, and it's just like, how did it bring all of them together? The arrival of Superman. Like, I thought that would have been a great way to, instead of culminate in one movie, to use one movie to branch out from there. Like, would have been the inverse of Marvel.
I like that a lot.
And it didn't happen,
No, it didn't.
That is brilliant right there. So yeah, like all the buildings are falling over, and he's trying to save people and stuff. And then right away, it's like, okay, this is intense. Batman v Superman, we're in it. I'm hooked at this point. I'm like, even rewatching it, I'm going, okay, maybe I need to throw out everything I've thought about this movie. Maybe it's going to stick the landing this time, because this is cool.
Yeah.
Then we see that they're like recovering kryptonite somewhere in Africa.
So wait, is this? But when does Martha and Thomas Wayne die again?
That's like the very first thing is like, let's get that origin story out of the way again.
Yes.
Yeah, and he uses that as kind of like the title sequence,
which is shot beautifully. The Bruce being lifted by the bats, I think, is really cool.
I liked that.
All of this is cool. I am tired of Martha and Thomas getting shot. I just. It better not be in this movie that's coming out next year. We don't need to see it.
Yeah, but at least I guess what this movie has going for it is they're doing it during the title sequence. So it is like, we're getting through it. We all know it is in super slow motion, but it's here.
Yeah.
And as much as we've all seen this, it does serve a function in this movie. It does. And also, like, the other thing that we all kind of have to do, and nobody does this, and even I am guilty of this too, is like, you kind of have to divorce yourself from everything that you've seen about Batman before you enter into a new Batman movie, So it's like, there's elements that I love about Michael Keaton's Batman. There's elements that I love about the Dark Knight trilogy. And then there's elements that I love about Batfleck. And like, but none of them have, like, I've never seen my perfect Batman movie, So it's like, I still have to, like, every time it's just like, all right, we're going to do something new. Let me recalibrate and start at zero and see where we're going from here. And so, yeah, like, it's functional in the story, but also, like, we do kind of have to, I don't know, we don't have to do an origin story every time, but if you're going to, like, at least they do it really quickly.
True.
Yeah, well, and I did think it was a smart way to do it. I think I'm also speaking from post 2019, where even a Joker movie had them get killed, and I
Yeah,
was like, oh my gosh, why is this in this movie? You know, it's
why is
and
this
I'm
movie a movie?
well, that's also something that
Yeah.
we agree with, and yeah, don't get me started on that one again.
No, I know. I admittedly I was doing that a little bit on purpose because I've heard you say you don't want to talk about it.
Well, I didn't say it for this series.
Oh, you meant specifically
I said Dark
the
Knight
Christopher Nolan
when we
stuff.
talked about The Dark Knight. I was not going to talk about that movie. But here's something I will say.
Okay.
Because I have given a lot of flack to the Snyder verse as it's now being called, and these first couple movies and Justice League and stuff. Having said all the things about Snyder, I do think that even though he's making comic book movies that I don't particularly like or love, they don't like. The Joker movie said, hey, you're a comic book fan, which means you're a nerd and you're stupid and I don't like you because you like these characters. This movie doesn't say that. It's not the characters the way I want them to be portrayed. It's not the story that really makes any sense. But it is still, you can tell that the person making it still likes this stuff.
Yeah.
They're not trying to make it to prove to you that you're stupid for liking comic books.
Right.
Because that's how Todd Phillips is, and no one could convince me otherwise. So now we go to the Africa scene.
Okay.
Now, a huge complaint from people when they left the movies was none of the Africa thing made any sense. When you watch the extended cut, they add a lot,
Yeah.
and it makes sense.
It's like they went out of their way to make this make sense based on the complaints, it seems, because like there's a lot more in this than there are in any other chunks, it feels like.
Because in the theatrical, it's like, you know, all this stuff happens where Lois Lane goes out to this, like, gang leader or something, like war leader guy. I don't know.
There's a civil war going on.
That's right. And then, like, all these people get shot, and then Superman flies away, and then they say that they're framing him. And you're kind of like, what are you talking about?
Oh, that's it?
And then, yeah. And then in this version, you see that they burn these bodies so it looks like they were, like, heat lasered, and they did all this extra stuff. And then there's the addition of this character from Nairobi, who is going to go to the Senate to talk about why they need to get rid of Superman because her family was affected. And I don't think she was even in the other movie. Am I right in that?
Not that I know of, no.
And she's, like, I think a really good addition to this movie. I think it, like, sells.
But she's kind of like the MacGuffin. She just, like, keeps moving that plot along.
Yeah.
It took me, it was pretty convoluted because I got to the point where I was like, why is she in this? They do explain it. But
Yeah.
a lot of this movie is like, you feel like you're stringing me along, and then you explain whatever this thing is, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
That took a really long time, is how it felt. And I know we watched the extended.
Yeah.
So.
And I will say, the extended, I didn't actually feel the length the way I thought I was going to.
Nice.
Yeah.
I felt like it actually clipped along pretty nicely. I mean, we did take a break. We paused it after an hour and took a walk, but after that, I mean, we watched the rest of the 2 hours and it was like no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's all that stuff, and then we have just like Clark Kent and Lois, you know, hanging out in a bathtub. Got some nice. Henry Cavill has gained, I don't know, 2,000 pounds since Man of Steel.
Yeah, he's much
He
bigger.
could beat himself up from the previous 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And
It's
so
it's all that arm reloading that he's been doing, you know?
yeah. And so we have all of that, and we're getting introduced to our characters again. We're seeing the Daily Planet, and they, of course, think that Superman killed those people.
And so a big thing for Lois in this movie is her basically trying to change that narrative for everyone, that he's not a threat, right?
Yeah.
Because that's like she has the bullet that she got from Africa, getting it tested. Basically, this bullet is gonna, I guess, prove that this was all a setup.
Yeah.
For Superman.
Because we'll find out that Lex Luthor put the insurgents there so that they could frame Superman, which would lead to a long chain of events. If one link in that chain was messed up, then it was going to ruin his whole plan, which is sort of like the funny thing about this movie. And it is a comic booky thing, like master planners always have every detail
really
accounted for.
thing, yeah.
But it is a little like, wait, what? Each time a new detail is set up and stuff.
Yep.
But we find out that Batman tortures people pretty brutally.
Yeah, he brands them.
That's a new take on Batman.
And everyone in Gotham, even civilians, are scared of him, is what it seems like.
Yeah. And it does work for the narrative of this movie to think about how, like, just 2 movies later, he's the leader of the Justice League kind of hurts my brain a little bit to think that, like, this is the same guy that at the end of this movie goes in and pretty much tells Lex Luthor he wants to and will maybe kill him and almost brands him.
Yeah.
And then it's like a little bit later, he's like, I'm putting together a team. Let's do this.
Yeah. We got to do good in the world, even though I'm doing terrible things.
Yeah, so what do you think of this version of Batman that's super ruthless, will murder any henchman that comes in his way?
A lot of death.
How much do I want to get into it now? I don't mind. I don't mind the branding. I don't mind the intensity of Batman. You know, a lot of people in this movie like complain like he's just flat out killing people. And I'm like, I watch it and there's like only, I think 2 times where I think that argument could be made. And everything else I kind of chalk up to the, hey, you know, I didn't do this. You're the one, like, I don't have to save you kind of a mentality. But you know, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you mentality. Like later on in the warehouse fight, like he didn't pull the pin on that grenade. That's the way I look at it. And that's kind of the way my dad always justified Batman for me. I was like, well, if Batman's a good guy, how come he goes out and he's not with the cops? That was always a question I had as a kid. And he's just like, Batman goes out and does the things that the cops can't do. And, you know, he does. I forget where I'm even going with this point that I'm trying to make right now. But no, like, I just don't mind it because part of me is like, I think about the mentality of where this character is supposed to be. And that's something I'll get into that a little bit later on when I give you my take. So like,
got it.
Overall, I don't mind it.
Okay.
And that's the point I was going to make as far as like Batman killing people. Like, well, you know what? In 1992, he let a bomb go off and just, you know, some clown blew up and he just smiled at him. So it's like Batman has killed in many movies. Let's not start like picking this one apart because, you know, it's easy to do, you know? Like that, I don't know.
I think a big thing for people feeling that way is the Christopher Nolan stuff because he really did hammer in like, well, I
have one rule.
Yeah,
well,
that's
the one
rule
you're going to have to break. You know,
and because
it
was such a huge success, it ruined most superhero movies today because we're all trying to copy it. Kind of like with those ideals too of like, well, he can't do that though, and it's like, well, Zack Snyder could have him do it.
Right. It is. We can't think that this is Nolan's Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that happens with Nolan's Batman is like, I literally laughed in the theater when I'm watching Dark Knight Rises and he's having a fight with Catwoman on his side. And then he literally takes a moment to be like, no guns, no. Like,
yeah.
Come the hell on, man. Are you kidding me? Like, you're in the middle of a battle here. Like, don't give me that crap. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That to me was just like, you have to go out of your way in certain, you know, Christopher Nolan's trilogy. And in this one, it's like, nah, like he does some bad things because Batman would.
Yeah.
I'll get into that more later.
Yeah.
But just listen, Hollywood. Just don't make a dark, gritty Spider-Man. Just for me, please. I don't. It can be a dark, gritty story, but I don't want a Spider-Man killing people.
As far as Spider-Man goes, turn off the dark.
Absolutely.
I'm glad I saw there was a pause there, and I'm like, oh no, they're not going to get it. Oh, they got it.
We know. We know. For those who don't know, there was an attempted Broadway. Well, I guess they did make it a Broadway play, Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark. That your Twitter recently shared and reminded people, or maybe it was Instagram, to watch the clip of the Green Goblin at the Letterman show performing a song from it. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's absolutely bananas.
What's even more insane is that I was within an inch of auditioning for that show.
Really?
Because they were doing open casting calls throughout the whole country to find a Peter Parker. And I was just in the right age demographic at the time. But I was just like, I got to the day of doing it. And I'm like, there's no freaking way I'm going to audition for. There's no way in hell I am going to. No, there's no. I said no. The reality set in. I was like, Jer, no. Don't even embarrass yourself. So yeah.
Were you gonna go to New York to do it, or was it like
no? It was
or
like
something?
Like they were going to like state by state, like locally.
No way.
Yeah, they were literally trying to find him anywhere they could.
Oh.
Yeah, like it wouldn't have had to go far. It would have been like in Chicago somewhere. Yeah.
What are we doing talking about Batman v Superman?
Well,
this is interesting.
Yeah. You should have gone to the audition just to have a story to tell.
Yeah.
You'll never know. You could have been one of the many actors that got hurt on that play.
Yeah, I could have died too. Like,
yeah.
Lost opportunities.
We meet Lex Luthor. He's a cool guy. He puts Jolly Ranchers in other people's mouths when he's talking to them. He wants to basically his whole plan is frame Superman and get General Zod's body and get to the downed Krypton ship.
And he wants to kill Batman.
Yeah, I think he's like,
Probably
two birds, one stone kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
he gets kryptonite from the government, right?
Yeah.
He gets Zod's body.
That's off his fingertips.
Yep. And later on you see he accesses the ship with the fingerprints. And every time in a movie, someone has to give blood as like an offering and they slice their hand, every time it's just like that's like your whole hand.
Yeah.
You're gonna need that. It's just that is, I know, a nitpicky thing, but he really digs into his hand.
No,
it is funny.
He slices it. Like
yeah.
It's like the end of Back to the Future, which you'll talk about one day.
They just he grips the knife so hard.
You grip it and do it, and it's like, I don't know, whenever I cut my finger, it's like gushing blood for minutes. just a little, and then just drop.
Yeah.
But, I've never sacrificed anything either, so what do I know?
Yeah.
Well, you have to give a lot of blood if you ever do. That's what 2 movies have taught me. Yeah, so all he gets... I guess we can get back to that later.
Yeah.
That's a lot of convoluted stuff too. Yeah.
And so then there is the person who we saw, I think it's Scoot McNairy, the actor. And he, that's his name, Scoot. That's crazy. I thought it was Scott for so many years, and then I really looked at it.
Because that makes sense. Because that's a name.
But he got his legs damaged and had to be amputated in the Battle of Metropolis, and so he hates Superman. And Lex Luthor's kind of coaxing him throughout the movie.
Yeah, like be the poster boy of why Superman is bad.
Yeah. And I got to say, all of this stuff about questioning Superman, what does it mean to be a god? If gods are walking among us, what does that mean to us? Like the whole thing where Batman's saying, if there's even a 1% chance that he's going to kill us, we have to take that chance and kill him. All of this, very into. The ideology of what is Superman and how scary potentially that could be. Mm-hmm. And people having experienced the pains of what happened, even though it was done for good. Like I would be him if I lost my legs during the Battle of Metropolis. I wouldn't be thankful for Superman.
And for Bruce Wayne to hate him so much makes sense because he was there and was trying to save people. So he witnessed it too. So that just plays into his motivation a lot.
Yeah, so all of that I think is really cool. And then the other thing, which I guess was extended and it should have been in the movie, is Clark Kent starts investigating this Batman character and going to Gotham. And he's finding that there's this guy who's going around branding people and not even finding information from them. And he is he's like targeting poor people and like going to the projects to beat up people. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, his motive's pretty strong. Like, this vigilante's out of control.
So here's a question I had. So the one dude that he branded, I think it the guy that had a lot of the girls kidnapped. Because we see him in prison and they transfer him to another prison and he gets stabbed.
Yeah.
Did he get stabbed because of what he did, or was there more stuff going on that I missed?
There's stuff that you missed.
Yeah.
And I don't want to step on any toes, but I don't.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the whole branding thing is, at least the way that I'm to understand it is that Batman starts doing this. Just, like Batman is getting out of control at this point, which I will touch on more later. But yeah, he's been doing this branding thing. And it seems to me what's happening is that Lex Luthor is using that as a way to also frame Batman and make him look worse in Superman's eyes. So he's got a guy on the inside who's essentially anybody who's branded, your job is to kill them and make it look like Batman.
Lex, okay.
Yeah, because his like right-hand man was like talking to that guy who ended up doing, right.
So yeah, Lex Luthor is trying to make Batman look even worse than the branding by, making it seem like he's branding people to be targeted to then be killed in the prison
Got
system.
it.
I did not catch that Lex was behind that.
Yeah,
because it's very hard to catch.
Yeah, a lot is going on.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I'm like, man, this Batman really sucks. He's just killing people, basically. Like, even beyond what we were just discussing, but he is branding these people, and he knows
they fooled you. Lex Luthor's plan worked against you.
Wait a second. Is Lex on the Zoom right now? Have we been hacked? I'm being convinced to love it. But then we have the wonderful, wonderful scene where Jesse Eisenberg talks about the oldest lie in America is that angels come from up above. And he talks about his dad.
Is that during that speech at that?
It's when he's talking to Holly Hunter in the room, and he's saying, do you think my dad would be upset if I moved one tiny little thing in this room? Ooh, and he's jumping around the room, and yeah. It's
they
tough.
talk about
it's actually embarrassing watching the scenes with him, and I actually like Jesse Eisenberg quite a bit, but
I wonder what Holly Hunter thought.
Yeah, she's like, hey, as long as I get this paycheck, I'm a pro, and this guy sucks.
Well,
I gotta
Holly
get out of
Hunter,
here.
Talk about someone who is like pretty consistently the Southern person in a movie, and she kills it every time.
I mean, I like her in this movie a lot.
No, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think she's great.
Do you guys do you watch any like, this is gonna sound like a stupid question, but do you guys watch like television like series like on just network stuff? Like, have you ever seen Mr. Mayor?
No.
Mr. Mayor, it's a Tina Fey created show where Ted Danson is like a guy who becomes mayor. I don't even remember how, but Holly Hunter is like the second lead on that show, and she's like hilarious on that show.
Really?
So
Oh, cool.
Not only could she crush it as the Southern in any movie, but she's also like damn funny as a really weird, like kind of like almost hippie like character, but not hippie. I don't like a new agey kind of like it's a weird. She's a weird character in it, and she's funny on it. So I would recommend it if you like Holly Hunter.
Okay. I don't think I've even heard of that show. What network was it on?
It's on NBC, I think. Yeah, NBC.
Huh. Wow. It's still on?
I mean, right now it's on hiatus. I mean, it'll be coming back. It's been renewed for another season, but yeah, my wife and I watched like the first season after it had been, like, we set it to record at one point months prior, and then like we were like, oh yeah, we recorded that show. Let's watch it. This is like 8 months after the show had like, the season finale. So yeah, I don't know when it's coming back, but she's really funny in it.
Oh, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, we'll put it on the list. So yeah, you were about to jump. I could see.
No, I actually don't remember what happens after the scene.
Well,
see, you wrote down.
Bruce is invited to Lex's, and
that's the event.
Yes,
and that's when he meets Gal Gadot.
Yes,
and sees that she is up to something no good, or maybe who knows.
Yeah, and I think isn't she's just trying to steal back the photo of herself, right? Isn't that all she's trying to do?
Yeah, her plot is to reacquire the photo that Lex Luthor somehow found of her from World War I, because she's still in hiding, even though apparently in 1984 she did this whole big TV speech thing. But it's cool.
Yeah, I have not seen 84 yet, so I was thinking about that the whole movie, and I was like, oh, doesn't this not really make sense? But
I
I
mean,
haven't seen it yet.
it makes as much sense as it can.
Yeah.
Like, like they do kind of give an explanation, which again is still like, why are you still beholden to this, continuity that nobody cares about anymore? Like, who cares if she was out in 1984? But yeah, like they still go out of their way to explain it. It's just, I don't know. It's thin. It's flimsy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that I mean, you kind of just said it, but that is, I mean, this podcast, we talk about series and how they grow and change. And I mean, that's an example of them. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more when we get to that movie, but it is kind of like they're kind of just rebooted this character. I'm sure they're not going to reference Batman v Superman for something in a Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman movie.
Oh, never.
And even, I mean, the biggest one probably is Aquaman, because if I'm remembering right, they basically kind of just pretend like none of the Aquaman stuff has happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's the right call, because you just kind of are like, okay, cool, I'm just watching this movie. But yeah, you'll find out soon enough, Jordan, and you'll make your own opinion.
That's true.
But it's hard to beat an octopus playing drums. I just gotta say, you
So
see
you've
an
said.
octopus playing drums, and it's hard to beat. So then there's this whole sequence of Superman, kind of being equated to God, and he's flying all over the world and he's saving people.
Yeah.
I like all that. It's pretty cool.
It looks good.
Looks great. I mean, this is a good looking movie.
I have a real problem in this sequence, and it's when any movie does this, where they use like real life TV news personalities to, so like later on when you see Jon Stewart show up, and it's just like something that's clearly
that was a woof moment for me,
because it's clearly not written by Jon Stewart. He's given these lines, and again, that's an example of like, oh, these are jokes written by somebody who doesn't know how to write a joke. Like it's almost like Jon Stewart should have been like, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm better than this. Like I can't let you give me these lines. Let me just write a joke. But then he'd have to get paid for it, and
Yeah.
What was his joke where he was like, Superman says he's not American, but he's got a third of the initials for the U.S. on the front of his shirt.
Oh, you mean he's got one of the most common letters in the U.S. alphabet on his shirt, and that could mean many things?
Huh. That was jarring. It's just weird when a movie it's not trying to be in our world and they have our world celebrities. I mean, that's enough to hurt your brain.
I just think that's what the series is filled with. It's stuff like that, where they just didn't really think about that for an extra minute.
Yeah. Because like in Marvel, like Marvel Comics, I will say, like they will reference the president and stuff. There was an issue with Spider-Man where Obama is in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, it's New York. Like this takes place in our world. It's not in Metropolis and Gotham.
Yeah.
Like cities that don't exist. Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah, just like keep them out. You don't need to blend those real world things. It's like you're trying to lend credibility to this world that we know is fake. I don't want this world to be real. Who wants Gotham to be a place?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Next is the Batman Nightmare Scape. I'm reading what you wrote. At this point in the movie, I looked down at my phone for like a second and I was so lost, but then I realized it was a nightmare.
You turned to me because, Batman gets out. He's got this big gun. He's in this crazy costume, and everything looks completely different. And he's like shooting people and stuff like that. And you're like, what is going on?
And then people with wings show up.
And I go, Jordan, just listen, just watch, because it is jarring. It's supposed to be jarring. Yeah. So just hang on.
It's not the right time to look away. I get, who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then he wakes up.
Of all the 1 minute periods that you could have looked away, you chose the worst 1 minute period to look away.
Very confused.
So he does all this fighting and stuff. There's this one shot where he's fighting everybody, and it's just sort of funny. I feel like ever since we did the Ip Man series, I'm just a little more critical of fight scenes, because it definitely seemed like, oh yeah, Ben Affleck is an actor, not a martial artist. Because you could see them like not real. I don't know. And
no,
that's
you can
very
see the
nitpicky,
choreography
but-
not being done at full speed. Like they're at
Yeah.
8% speed, and it's like you got to speed it up a little bit. Like just
Yeah.
just a little bit. Like
yeah.
all you got to do.
It's like Batman will always be clunky. I mean, maybe one day it won't be, but even like Christian Bale, it's just like those fight scenes too he's just so clunky.
Yeah,
Because
the costume is so
because of the
restricting.
costume.
But
Talk about clunky later on in this movie, though.
oh yeah, we got some clunk. But he wakes up, and then we see, as always, the high-pitched Ezra Miller screaming at him in this strange outfit, and his helmet pushes back, and he goes, Lois is the key. Lois is the key. Wait, am I early? I must be early. He's already getting ready for his stand-up bit that he gets to start slinging in Justice League. And then he disappears, and then Ben Affleck wakes up again.
Yeah. And can I just say what a mistake it was? Like, of all the mistakes this movie makes, you put a man in a red costume with a helmet that opens up in the front, and you give him a little weird goatee, and you expect this audience to not go, oh, why is Iron Man in this movie? Like, I literally people in my audience be like, is that Iron Man? Like, I'm like, and even I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's the Flash, but why does he look like that?
Oh, that's so funny.
that's a funny point. I didn't even think about that. I had no idea what that was. I mean, my DC Comics literacy is pretty low. But I was.
Well, can't he run through so fast he can run through time?
Yeah. And so he's like in the Speed Force or something like that. But it was just so jarring. All of the setting up for future movies in this movie is, I mean, straight up bad.
Yeah, it's egregious. It's they have a lot of balls to be like, oh no, we're gonna get to all of this.
Well, and I think for as much problems as there are in Phase 1 of Marvel, this movie and Justice League really make you appreciate the fact that each character had their own movie. So when they came together, you knew who they were, and you were like, okay, cool. A new story can be told instead of this where it's like rush, rush, rush. And then Justice League just kind of starts. And I mean, I shouldn't even talk about it yet. That movie's insane. The whole setting up of future stuff, it's really clunky, and it's not good. So then...
Period.
I wrote Lex sends Superman pictures, and that seems like that is way...
He sends pictures of the branding of the inmate.
Oh,
so it's continuing him. Oh, so we did talk about this. It continues him on his investigation.
Yeah.
So then
so then Batman is trying to get kryptonite so that he can kill Superman. And I actually love Jeremy Irons' Alfred. It's a different take, and it's cool. He like works on cars and chops wood, and he's a little bit younger, and I dig it.
I assume you guys didn't watch the Gotham TV series?
No,
Just
I
a
have
little
not.
bit.
I think, I mean, that kind of like, it's in the same vein as this Alfred, but the Alfred on that show is my all-time favorite Alfred I've ever seen depicted in a movie. Yeah, actually, and you know what? Like, as bad as that series was, also my favorite Penguin, and perhaps my favorite like real Riddler, not like Jeremy Irons in Die Hard with a Vengeance. It's got a lot of my favorite elements. It's just like the execution of it was very poor. But yeah, every week, like I could count on good Alfred and like teenage Bruce.
Yeah,
like awesome scenes. Like it was always going to be good when the two of them were doing stuff together. So check out, like, see if you could. You don't have to watch the series, but like see if you could find like a YouTube like highlights of Alfred in Gotham, and see if you could watch Gotham, but just Alfred.
Yeah. Okay.
Worth it to me.
But yeah, I think he's really good, and I could be misremembering, but I feel like there's more of him in this movie than the trailer or the theatrical, because I just remember leaving the movie and being like, I don't even know if I can have an opinion about him. That's how I remember feeling.
Maybe, I feel like he was pretty involved in this Ultimate Cut.
Yeah, and I do think it's cool that I mean, this is a common thing that Alfred does, but I think he does a really good job of you know, like at the scene where he's saying, I'm going to get this kryptonite. And he goes, so that you can destroy it. And Batman says, no.
Mm.
And he knows that he can't convince him. Like, Bruce is far too angry.
Yeah.
But he's like,
He
okay,
just wants him to settle down.
okay, I guess you're going to make a really bad decision. You should listen to me more often.
Yeah.
So then there is the Batmobile sequence.
Yeah.
We get to see the Batmobile. Cool design.
Yeah.
This is we get a all right.
I mean, look, I'm a man who grew up with the completely impractical Anton First 1989 Batmobile. That thing is a work of art. This thing is okay, but I mean, I'll take it over what they're going to give us in the Robert Pattinson one. Like, I don't want that at all. But
Yeah.
you know, it's definitely not my favorite. I even kind of like the ones in the other Joel Schumacher movies. The look of
those are so good. Well,
Oh,
yeah, the Tim Burton ones and those ones, yeah, that's obviously those ones look the best.
They make no sense, but you know,
Yeah.
like, they're the coolest looking vehicles, and yeah, like that 1989 Batmobile. Like, I got it right back there on Lego, man. Like,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it's cool.
So,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's-
that one it is the coolest. You are correct. And
Yeah.
I do want to say for the record, I did not say this one was cooler than that one.
No, yeah, no. It's just for me. It's like I won't even put it in the cool category. I'm just like, what are you going for with this thing? Like,
Just doesn't have much character. That is, yeah. I mean,
maybe I just am beholden to when the Batmobile's on screen. I'm just like, yeah, cool.
I mean,
'Cause,
like, it's always a fun sequence. Like, you know,
Yeah.
something fun, but
I mean, I like the Adam West Batmobile too. That thing's cool.
oh yeah, very cool.
I'll take that. Yeah, I would, like, if I were to rank Batmobiles, it's like 89, maybe 66. Let's go with Forever, Batman and Robin, and then yeah, like the Tumbler is pretty low for me too. Like, I'm like, I got upset with that one. I'm like, aside from it being black, it doesn't even resemble a Batmobile. Like,
Yeah.
there's
True.
nothing bat about this, and I was very upset about that.
Yeah, I like it, but it's probably the least cool looking out of all of them.
Right.
I like
Well,
for
like-
the world it presents, I like it.
Well, because that world is practical, and you're going to understand how it works.
Yeah.
Which is where you forgive it, because you're like, well, I mean, he's not gonna throw a bat fin on the back of that for no reason at all. Like,
Yeah.
so I guess I have to accept it.
Batman is chasing down the white Portuguese to get the Krypton, which he finds out is a ship, and there's some pretty decent Batmobile stuff. Frankly, it is a little jarring after rewatching the Dark Knight stuff, where almost all of the sequences were practical, and this one is like, it's pretty CG. The car, for the most part, even just like slamming into walls, like something that any stunt driver could do. It's just a little confusing why they made that decision.
It's because they look, when you get it to look like CG like that, they just look like action figures banging against the wall, where there's no denting. It's just, it hits the wall and then it goes like, it just kind of bounces back. You know, I don't like it either. Yeah, it looks real fake.
Yeah, and again, we're not purists. We love a good CG, but you know, misusing it is a hard thing to get past.
Mm-hmm.
And then Superman stops his car. He flies down, rips off
tells
the
him-
doors,
Tells him to stop.
and we have the great trailer moment that they showed us in the trailer, as you were referencing. And he's like, "You better stop." Batman says, "Do you bleed?" And he flies away, and he goes, "You will."
Yep.
And you go, "Wow, I'm moody right now. I gotta listen to." I don't know what band do you think Bruce Wayne is listening to in the Batcave?
This Bruce Wayne, like,
This
I mean,
Bruce Wayne.
this guy's listening to like Megadeth or something like that, like just
Yeah.
heavy metal. Yeah,
That was the kick drum doing that.
or like 9 Inch Nails or something like. I guess that seems a little more Pattinson almost, maybe, but I don't know.
He's listening to 9 Inch Nails, but he's taken the files and he's made them longer and lower.
Yeah.
So it's all slowed down and it's like a lower pitch.
There
Yeah.
you go.
So they do all that, and then Superman is really like, man, this sucks. He flies to his mom.
No one likes me anymore, Mom. And she says, I saw that you wrote it down. Or that he doesn't owe the world anything.
Yeah.
So basically,
she's a good mom, I guess. Just telling him, you don't owe anyone anything. You can do whatever. I don't care. Cool. Very, very Superman.
I think she's trying to be a good mom, and she's not worrying about the Superman. She's worrying about Clark Kent in that, like, Clark is trying to please everybody. And it's just like, dude, you can't please everybody. Like, be you, be true to you, and like do the best that you can. That's essentially what she's saying, which is,
yeah.
That's a good thing for a parent to say, as opposed to something else, which I'll talk about later.
Which is like, what else is she gonna say? No parent has been in this situation before.
Well, and I do get that. It just and that's the like part where I have to go, okay, this is Zack Snyder's Superman. This is not like true to a Superman that should be. This is his, and he can have it. Because it's just like, I don't know.
What?
I just don't. I really do. Like, rewatching it, I was like, oh, I hate this scene. Like,
I might, you know what? Like, I might be able to fix that for you.
Okay.
I might. I don't know. I can't promise anything. I'm not a miracle worker, but I might be able to save some of that for you.
Spider-Man comes home, and his Uncle Ben says, like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, care about yourself. That's how it rings to me. It's like, no.
This isn't Spider-Man.
I know, but I think they're kind of in the same realm.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, like their ideology. But
okay.
Again, I am not a Superman expert.
You're a Spider-Man expert.
I try every day. But so maybe someone listening has read a lot more Superman comics, and they can go, actually, Micah, you got egg on your face right now because you're so wrong.
So after this, generally, is the pea scene.
Yeah.
In the jar.
Peas in the jar. And
I thought this was going to be much more dramatic from what I remember when you told me about this. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of funny. It's just like, wow, I guess we really were expected to remember that one line that was throwaway that he said very quickly so that we could get this like big, huge laugh. Not laugh, but it's this notorious moment with pea in Grandma's peach tea.
To what end is the pea in this movie? Like, to what function?
Yeah.
Does it serve?
It's so odd.
Except to have Holly Hunter take pause for a moment before getting blown up. Like,
yeah.
Useless. Garbage. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, we don't need urine in a Batman movie or Superman movie. We don't need urine in a superhero movie.
No.
End of story.
So then, and we'll find out later, Lex Luthor blew up the Senate hearing.
While Superman was inside.
Yes.
So this terrible thing happens. Superman was there when it happened. He didn't stop it. Dare people even wonder if he's the reason for it. Because everyone hates him. Even though he is helping people after it happens until he does need to leave.
Well, and I think it's important to note that is added, that he was helping people.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Is crazy because when you watch the theatrical, he walks out and flies away. And you're just like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't help people. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, maybe I misremembered. And I looked it up to confirm. But yeah, in the ultimate cut where it's extended, he actually is helping people. And the paramedics say, there's nothing else you can do, Superman. Thank you for helping. And it's like, oh, okay. That fixed that whole problem I had.
Pretty big difference.
And again, like, you're only adding what, a little bit of time if you include that scene?
Yeah.
10 seconds probably.
Yeah, it's one of the worst decisions in the theatrical cut to not include that moment.
And I feel like that's a Warner Brothers cutting on time or something.
But still,
cut time somewhere else. Cut some Lois Lane time or something.
Yeah, she's in this so much.
Yeah.
And I get what it's just, we talked about this in the last, and for Man of Steel 2, it's like, you put Lois Lane in it because that's the love interest. I don't think you need a love interest at all. But I get what she's doing in this movie, but it really is like, if you have to come down to it and you have to cut stuff, just cut her.
Yeah.
Because what she does is she's just trying to make Superman good to everyone else, which, I mean, she's figuring stuff out, but it doesn't really affect the greater plot. And then later on, she throws the kryptonite down like a well, and she has to go back down and swim for it. And it's like, I don't know.
That is kind of like like she throws it down and then she walks out, and then like a few minutes later she's like, oh shit, and then she's gonna like go back and like get it, like,
and almost dies doing it, and then Superman has to get it, and he obviously almost dies. It's just wild. It's wild.
I mean, this is at the end of the day, whatever you think about it, you have to admit it's strange and it's weird and it's out there, for better or for worse.
mm-hmm.
This movie does try a lot of stuff. But let's just kind of skip ahead here. I mean, we've been really covering this well, but I'm starting to get exhausted. So Lex tries to, he's like, oh man, now I'm trying to, so let's get to Batman v Superman, right? Can we?
Yeah.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
Lex
Well,
has
go
set
ahead.
up this whole thing, and he has kidnapped Ma Kent, and he had, well, let's not forget her name, Martha Kent. This is important to
that's
remember.
important.
And he's taking photos of her, and he tells Superman, you have to kill Batman or she's going to die. And that starts the whole fight. Batman is ready to go. He's got his searchlight. He's in the like,
Searchlight? What is
iron
that?
costume.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he has kryptonite
Searchlight.
weapons.
Yeah.
And they begin their fight. So let's talk about the fight.
So your thing, I remember you were talking about how this kind of feels like a situation where maybe Superman should have just said, hey, he kidnapped my mom, help.
Well, it's a fun, like, obviously this is the whole thing.
No, I
movie.
know. Yeah.
But on the one hand, like this movie, these are the problems with it is like it has to spend so much time in this fight trying to subliminally explain to the audience why they can't talk two sentences to each other.
Yeah.
To just explain this all so that they can fight. And this is why if I were to rewrite this movie, and I hope this is not yours because that would be, you've been hyping this up, but my rewrite to this movie would be to completely cut Lex Luthor out of the movie. And it would be to just let them have their natural biases and fight on their own terms. And there is no kidnapped thing. That would be my edit to this.
Yeah, and I don't have so much as an edit as so much as I have justification for the decisions that were made. So, but I am with you there. If you're going to make an edit, 100%, Lex Luthor does not need to be in this. You need to have Batman doing his thing almost completely unaffected by Superman. And Superman comes in, and Batman is the villain of Man of Steel 2. And he's still a good guy, but from Superman's perspective, you're doing vigilante bad things and I'm doing the Boy Scout thing. You're doing it wrong. I'm doing it right. You need to stop. And Batman's like, kiss my ass. I'll kick your ass. Don't tell me I've been doing this for 20 years. And that's what their fight is about. Like that makes more sense than
absolutely
what we get here. Yeah.
And I think that there's just kind of a funny thing, because this is in Civil War as well. I think it makes a little more sense in Civil War. But it's like, how come we can't just have our two good guys fight? Because they could disagree on something. You know, so like Iron Man and Cap, they fight, but there is like an ultimate power behind them that they will unite against. And I do understand that does help you wrap up a movie a little easier. But I think it would be cool if you just have these two different people, Superman and Batman, and they can't agree on something and they got to duke it out. I think it's like, it would be an awesome movie if that was the case. I think.
And I kind of this is a hot take too, but I kind of don't like what happens in a lot of Civil War because it's like, to me, I can almost justify what happens in this movie more because it's like, you mean to tell me after all of the experience that you had with Steve Rogers and your familiarity with Bucky and knowing that this man is not that he was brainwashed, like, you mean to tell me that you're still gonna like beat the crap out of each other because he didn't think to tell you this like that to me was like,
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point.
I understand that Tony Stark is a flawed character and that's the whole point. But like, I was like, come on, that seems to me like more of an error than these two like, because again, we're presenting a grand movie here, so like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to, I'm not saying that it justifies what we get in this, but to me, the reality of Civil War felt more fake than this in certain points.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if I agree because I haven't seen Civil War in a while, but I do kind of dig that take at least.
Yeah.
So this fight, it's pretty cool. It's in 70 millimeter, and they keep the aspect ratio. If you're watching it on HBO Max, I'm always a fan of keeping the ratio. I think it looks amazing. They fight for a while, and then before the fight started, I said, Jordan, do you have any idea of what's going to happen in this movie? And she said, because she had noticed, wait, they have the same mother's names. And she said, well, it'd be funny as if they got in a fight and then they said each other's name, the name of their mother, and then they cried about it and became friends. And I said, oh, do you really think that's going to happen? And she goes, oh, no, that'd be too stupid if that happened. And then
good.
That's what happens.
Yeah. Yep, they did it.
And on a I think you can explain this. I know this is kind of cited as like one of the egregious, like stupidest things to happen in the modern century in film. It's not that bad.
I think,
but it is pretty bad.
It is, but it's like I get what they were doing though. So Clark or Superman says they'll kill Martha, like stop. And to Batman, he translated it as like, don't let Lex Luthor kill your parents a second time through whatever that is. That's like kind of why I took it, like through killing their memory or their honor or something.
I think it's even simpler as that. Like Batman is 100% on like a path, and there's, like I've heard it described recently as Captain Ahab, man. Like he is just going after, and he is not going to stop no matter who tries to stop him, no matter who tries to reason with him. He's not going to stop. So something has to make him just snap and go, wait a minute, what the hell am I doing here? And so in that regard, I get what they're doing, but like there are so many different ways to go about everything in the actual fighting. Like the fisticuffs that they throw should have been handled completely differently the entire time. I mean, it's cool stuff to look at, and that's really what this sequence was built around. Is just like, let's do these cool things. I was like, all right, cool. Now, how do we justify it? Who cares? Martha? Okay.
Martha. Oh, wait, that's the same. That would work. David, write that down.
Oh my God, nobody ever thought about that before. David Goyer, you're a genius. You get to keep working for another 10 years.
And hey, David, we'd love to have you on the podcast sometime. We'll talk about, we'll have you on a John Wick episode. How about that? So, yeah, there's all that, and then Doomsday is awakened, and he fights them, which means Wonder Woman has to come in.
Yes.
And there's a big, big, big fight. The Wonder Woman theme song rules. It's cool. And in the theaters, I was like, this is amazing. Since this is like my thing with the score, is like it has some great iconic stuff, but I feel like because of future movies, I'm sick of those things. As much as I love the Wonder Woman score, it's like every time she shows up in a movie, it's always like, dun, 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 dun.
I don't know. I disagree. I'm like, I watched Wonder Woman and I was like, where was the theme? Where'd it go? I want that theme. Wonder Woman 84, you kind of have it in there. Where's the theme? I want that. Give me that electric guitar back. That's what
maybe I'm just thinking of the Justice League Snyder cut, because I think it's in it like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right. I don't remember.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're not tired of it, and you, Mike, are tired of it.
But
I don't know if I'll ever get tired of.
Yeah,
Wonder Woman.
I mean, it is a great riff, and the worst part though is in the Snyder cut of Justice League. There's like a female vocalist also Wonder Woman theme that's like, ah!
Oh yeah,
and there's a
like
there's
Bjork.
a sequence at the end where I want to say it happens like 3 times in 3 minutes. And it's like every time the camera cuts to her. Ah!
Yeah, that's funny.
But it is a great theme. And I remember in the theaters, I was like, let's go, Hans. You got this. But then they fight Doomsday.
She was cool. This is the first time I've seen a Wonder Woman thing because I haven't seen her movie.
Yeah.
So this was very cool. She's awesome. I'm excited to see her movie because I know you've talked it up too. I just got to say about the Doomsday creature thing. 10 years ago, I would have hated this. Now, still don't like it, but I like looking at it. So I feel like monster-wise, it's like, okay, this is kind of fun. Kind like they have to fight this thing. I mean, I'm totally out by this time in the movie anyway. And then when it mutates because of the nuclear bomb, I was like, okay, how much more can you do? Can you have a bone like spear grow out of its hand and stab Superman? Okay, you did it. That's cool. So that worked.
I'm like
for
not
me.
into his design at all. That's so funny that you dig it.
It was just, I think I was pretty bored at this point. I needed something flashy, and they gave it to me, and it was fine.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, in this sequence, Superman sacrifices himself to stab it with a Kryptonian spear.
Yeah.
What do you think about this happening?
It makes no sense. he Wonder Woman. Okay, they really they do what they can to justify everybody's role in this final takedown of Doomsday. Batman blasts him with the kryptonite grenade, which weakens Doomsday. Wonder Woman's got him with the lasso. He's restrained. Superman flies in and stabs him with the spear. Realistically, though, Superman should have just been like, hey, let me grab that lasso from you. Go take this. And just Wonder Woman should have gone up there and stabbed Doomsday in the chest. Like, it wouldn't have made any difference to her.
Yeah.
The kryptonite. And maybe she would have died, like, in the process the same way. But it's like, I don't know. At least there's a fighting chance, you know? Like, the logic of it doesn't make sense that it has to be him. Like, it literally doesn't.
Yeah. And it does feel like when you've been watching this movie for so long, like it doesn't feel like this movie was building to one of the biggest pop culture characters ever getting killed.
Yeah.
Right.
And so to me, even having known that it happens, it's like, oh, this is so random that he has to die. And I just feel like he doesn't. And then, I mean, obviously,
not even poetically. Like, I think that they think the people, who wrote it and Zack Snyder, like, to them it makes sense because the whole movie they've been making him, like, everyone hates him. Maybe, it's like the Dark Knight thing. Like, they don't, like, they need him right now. They don't deserve him. All that garbage, like. So maybe they're thinking, like, once we get to this point poetically, it makes sense for him to be the one to sacrifice himself. But I do agree that it is, like, I mean, strategically, that's a bad move for him to do that thing.
Just weird. And then, we have the funeral. And then before they even get to the credits, you see dirt floating above his casket, which doesn't make any sense because when they bring him back in Justice League, it's completely of their accord, not anything that has to do with his body. So I don't understand why the dirt was floating. And I know we blew past a lot of stuff there, but I think those are the highlights.
Yeah.
And it's a very weird movie. I don't think it's horrible. I don't think it's good.
No.
But I want to hear what I've been waiting this whole time to hear.
Right. Okay. So this is not going to save the movie for a lot of people. In fact, a lot of people may hear this and just be like, even like mad that I would try to use this as justification. I'm just using what I know about myself, what I know about the story that's been presented to us in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. To me, the way that you justify this is simply like you examine the facts of what you have in Man of Steel. And Man of Steel, to me, is like you were raised by a bad stepfather. And that's literally what this is to me. Superman, Clark Kent at 12, 13 years old or whatever is starting to learn this, that he has these powers, that he's different in some way. Dare I say the way that somebody might discover their own sexuality around 12 or 13 years old. And your stepfather, Pa Kent, goes, you better hide who you are. He does not allow Superman to learn who he is in any way because he makes him suppress being that person. He's like, hide who you are. Don't let it out. maybe you should let people die because they might think that you're weird and they might cut you. They might look at you like they might want to experiment on you, like whatever. It's like he basically tells him, don't be you. And so Superman grows up for 30 years, periodically having these moments where he couldn't save people. He knows that he can do better. And his stepfather is still saying, don't do it, man. Like, but he's like, but I can go save the dog. Don't do it. Let me die in a tornado. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Don't be you. Hide who you are. Then he meets his real father, and his real father's like, oh, dude, you're awesome. You can be whatever you want, man. You have no idea who you are. Like, you're gonna save this planet. You are literally the reason we sent you to this planet is because you're gonna save these people. And Superman goes, what the hell am I supposed to do with this information? Like, he doesn't know who he is. And this is something that was always stressed, even in the Man of Steel, that this is a Superman who has not come into his own. This is a man who grew up on this planet knowing a little bit about what's going on inside of him, but not being allowed to explore what that is. And then all of a sudden his world is turned on his head and he has to kind of figure out who that person is. And so there's this big, huge destruction. He saves the world. He's conflicted about all of this throughout the whole thing. He kills Zod, something that causes him to cry about. He didn't want to do it. He doesn't know any better. He doesn't know how to handle the situation because he didn't have a father or parents who taught him good lessons. They basically modeled bad behavior for him. And so, him not knowing what to do, he's in that situation. He's like, I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. This is all I can think of. Crack. He snaps his neck. It causes him to like break down. He's like, what the hell? Like, who am I? Oh my God, this is messing with my brain. And then the world calls him Superman and they look at him as a hero. And all of a sudden he starts to get a little full of himself. And I think that's kind of what happens in this movie. He's kind of like, well, wait a minute. I've been doing this for 18 months now. I'm doing pretty good. And there's this Bat guy doing something. I don't like that. I'm going to step in and I'm going to do something about that. Cause he's kind of cocky and kind of full of himself, quite frankly. And, so that's kind of like the Superman, is that he has not figured out what he needs to do. He's kind of putting his girlfriend first. He's kind of like, the world doesn't like me. Like, I'm trying to do good, but they don't appreciate it. Like, he's kind of whiny about it because he just doesn't know what to do, So there's the Superman of it. The Batman side of it is, what do we learn in this movie? He's been doing this for 20 years. We learned that Robin is dead. His sidekick Robin is dead. Now, granted, you have to, like I've said, you have to divorce yourself of anything you know of Batman. So this is kind of one of those things where it's like, well, you have to know who Robin is to know that this means something. But point being, Robin is killed, and that causes Batman to lose his mind. He's like, are you kidding me? Like, he starts to go into darker territory. And maybe he gets a grip on himself, and maybe he doesn't. It doesn't matter. But then all of a sudden, this alien shows up, destroys his building, and he's like, are you kidding me? I have been doing this for 20 years in Gotham. I've taken down the Joker. I've taken down the Penguin. I've taken down all of these people with powers that I don't understand. And all of a sudden, this freaking alien shows up and destroys half the city. Screw him. He deserves to die. That's where Batman is. And as a man who is prone to bouts of rage at times, whose parents modeled bad behavior for him, because that's another thing you have to understand about Batman is he did not have parents growing up. At 8, 9, 10 years old, his parents are murdered. And this is something that Gotham, the TV series, kind of touches on a little bit better than the movies ever have, is that a 12-year-old Bruce Wayne looks to Alfred, his butler, the father figure in his life, and he can be like, you know what, that's good advice, but I still pay your salary, and I don't care. I don't have to listen to you because you're not my dad. And he's going to do whatever he wants. And that's 20 years of Batman doing, the job that he thinks he needs to be doing. Everyone trying to tell him, like, you don't need to be doing this. And Batman is crazy. Like, nobody thinks about that. Batman is psychotic. To put on a costume, to go out there and to just beat people within an inch of their life because something bad happened to him when he was a kid is crazy.
Yeah.
This is a crazy, psychotic man up against a creature, an alien who's kind of full of himself. And that's where, like, I think a lot of the behaviors of Batman and Superman in this movie can be justified. A lot of people are like, Superman doesn't behave like Superman. It's like, well, he doesn't know how to be Superman yet. It takes him dying, and it takes him coming back, and understanding and getting a second chance, which is what happens kind of in Justice League. If you watch like the Snyder cut, it happens in both versions, but like doesn't matter what happens in the Joss Whedon version. That's not the intent.
Yeah.
So like I totally understand the arc of where this character is supposed to go until we started to hear this news recently of like, oh, what the Justice League trilogy is. We're like, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but this is, this Superman is also influenced by the Injustice, like, and I think that what the series was kind of doing was interesting in that they were basically presenting this universe where they gave you the villain up front. Like that's where it's going, is that Superman was essentially going to be like a Thanos in this universe. Like he's the major force, which kind of makes sense. Because everyone's always like, well, how do you make a Superman movie? Because Superman's too powerful. You make him the villain. You make him the bad guy. And I can kind of follow that to a certain degree. But then you hear about like the stuff about like, oh yeah, Lois and Batman and Bruce Wayne slept together and Lois was pregnant with his kid. And like,
I don't know. I haven't heard of these things.
These are all things that came out like after the Snyder Cut was released. And like, I don't want to spoil. You're not going to watch the Snyder Cut though, right? Or were you guys like?
No.
I've seen the Snyder Cut. Yeah.
I
You
don't
watched
want
it
to.
in its entirety?
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's, Lois is pregnant in the Snyder Cut. She's intended
Yeah.
to be pregnant with Bruce Wayne's kid, which are Clark.
What?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense. Like she ends up like having Bruce Wayne's kid and like, or like I'm sorry.
Like they're saying this is their intent of the series.
I'm reversing it. Yeah, the intent was she's pregnant with Superman's kid. Superman's kid grows up with no powers and becomes the new Batman. Like the intention is that Batman dies in like the 5th movie of this series.
Oh.
And it's like once you start to get into those details, which clearly you guys are baffled as I am by like where they were going, but like I can follow it all the way up to like we're showing you the birth of a villain, basically, like a superhero who does good and then gets kind of full of himself and then like has to like go through this arc and then he becomes a villain at the end. Oh god, like it's so bad when I really start to think of the details of like why he was going to be the villain. And they touch on it a little bit in this when you get into the Nightmare sequence. He's like, you took everything from me. And it's like,
yeah,
you slept with Lois and I'm mad. Like I think that's kind of like the details of what was supposed to happen. Like a
because there's
sexual triangle that happens, and that's where we're going with our superhero movies apparently.
There is that because in the Snyder Cut there is like a very long nightmare sequence scene, and the implication is that they might have even shown him that Superman has destroyed the world.
Essentially, yeah. Like Darkseid has arrived, and he's working like Superman is working with Darkseid, and like they're destroying the world.
Which was, I mean, by that point I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've made it through 4 hours. I deserve some points or something.
It's okay. That whole I mean, it's an experience in and of itself. But anyway, that's how I justify a lot of, like I said, I have to go out of my way to enjoy it as much as I can. And the way that I do that is by filling in some of these blanks with the information that's provided to me. And when you look at it through that lens of like, this is a Superman and a Batman who did not have good parents growing up. Like that's the kind of the reality of what this is. It kind of makes some of those decisions easier. And it's like, it doesn't change the fact that Superman should have just been hovering above Batman and being like, hey man, look, I know we don't get along, but they're going to kill my mom. Can you help me out? And then we can go back to fighting.
Yeah.
Like that's all that needed to happen. But that's not what we get, like I like, and they touch on some of the Dark Knight Returns comic book stuff where it's like, it is a kind of a philosophy where Batman has gone off the edge and it's like, you need to pull it back, man. Like, that's kind of where Superman is coming from with this, but like just have them talk more and like have that be, it doesn't need to be Lex Luthor framing Batman. Like Batman's already doing bad things that Superman can look at and be like, that's not good. Because I'm doing it differently. And Batman can look at Superman and be like, bitch, I've been doing this for 20 years and I lost a partner. Don't tell me how to do my job. Like they can both be like that. That's all it needs to be.
Much simpler.
I like looking at justifying the Man of Steel stuff with his stepdad and the
that's a nice take. I like that a lot.
When I watch it, I try and justify like why is that supposed to be a teachable moment? Because, that's how they're making it, is him telling him to suppress himself, is like, how is that supposed to be helpful for him and other people? I just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, and I had to watch a little. I had to kind of watch the highlights of Man of Steel before this to make sure that my opinion still was valid because it's been so long, and I haven't seen Man of Steel since I've had kids of my own. So when I was watching that scene where he's talking to Clark, being is this how it he's like, maybe you don't need to be, display, don't show that, the world's not ready for that. I don't know if my kid I wouldn't be like that. I don't know. I was upset even before having kids, being like, that seems like a really bad lesson to teach your kid.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
I'm just like, that seems even more I would be like, look, this is a confusing thing that you're going through, and we're going to help you figure it out. And we'll help you learn more about yourself, and we'll figure this out together. But suppressing who you are and just be like, hide it at all costs. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Oh, you're gay? Hide it. That's it. I mean, that's all. I think that really is kind of a metaphor.
Yeah.
In Man of Steel, it's
I'm
kind of.
I'm curious if that was an intent they had though, because those scenes don't read like that. I think you are providing a very cool way to look at this series that I don't think that they were intending.
No, because I don't think that they were. As much as they thought ahead, I don't think they were thinking that deeply about what it was.
Yeah.
Well, it's like he's asking in Man of Steel, he's asking you need to be a little selfish until you can figure yourself out, all that stuff. So don't save those kids on the bus that fell into the river. Maybe some people just need to die. And it's my parents would have never told me that. That's just what parent tells you, if you have the opportunity to do something good for other people, why wouldn't you do it?
So, having your reading on it, it makes it a commentary on parenting.
Yes.
I gotta give you cred. That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. I mean, honest, I have been going through, since having kids of my own, I've had to do so much of my own therapy, and a lot of it is understanding the behaviors that I am modeling for my children. Because I am very much like Batman at times. If I am angry about something, there's times where nobody can change my opinion of it, and it's only something that makes me go what the hell am I doing? I need to calm down here. That makes me take a step back from it, So I can relate to that desire to be not the full on desire of we need to kill that man.
Yeah,
but
right.
I get where Batman's coming from, 20 years of doing it, and doing a crazy job dealing with crazier people is going to make you go, what the hell is going on here? I totally get that. Him looking up at the sky and being like, this guy needs to die. Makes perfect sense for this Batman, for where he is in his life.
Yeah. Well, and having said all that, to our audience, if you haven't rewatched the movie and you were I was on the fence, or you haven't watched it, I will say, I think you got to go ultimate cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if for no other reason, then things will just, whether you accept them or not, they will be explained in the movie to a better degree.
And the motivations for both Batman and Superman are much clearer, I think.
Yeah, flawed, but at least painted more clearly. Yeah.
But that, I mean, I think we did it, guys.
I mean, I took a lot of your time to talk about to do it.
This might be I think this is our longest episode to date.
Well, we're not quite as long as the ultimate cut itself, but
no. Yeah, but I think
this is what we do on our show all the time. We go over way too long on some of these movies that are under 90 minutes, and we talk about them for over 2 hours sometimes. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, do you have anything to plug?
Oh, I do. Well, thank you for that. Yeah. Well, and again, I wanted to thank both of you guys because I know I was kind of I want to be on your show. It wasn't.
I was excited.
Yeah.
I'm always asking people hey, do you guys want to do an episode? And I totally flat out was you're doing Batman. You're gonna have me on, right? So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you had a great take, so I'm glad.
Oh,
well, thank you. I'm glad you appreciate that, and I appreciate being on. And you can listen to 90 Under 90 wherever you get your podcasts. We did just launch a Patreon on May 4th. We started, we have a few exclusives. We have a franchise show of our own that we're talking about, wherein we discuss movies that we otherwise have completely ignored. So yeah, we have a show that on there that's a weekly so that's a bonus show, and then you can get all kinds of other exclusives. And I would be remiss if I did not also plug An Intervention, which is still available.
Oh yeah,
to watch
watch
on
it,
Amazon
folks.
Prime. And Dan has showed me a little bit of the next one too. So if we're lucky, we're gonna have something else at the end of this year too. But I don't want
cool.
to. I don't want to jinx anything right now. But yeah, so we got that, and lastly, if you just want some goofy, stupid TikTok fun, at The Great Plume on TikTok. Just that's all I'll say. Go ahead, look into what he has to offer. And
what he has to offer.
I think you'll be entertained. I hope you'll be entertained by it at all. It's really stupid, but it's fun for me.
Cool. Yeah, big recommend to The Intervention.
Yeah,
Mike
we
and I
really
were
enjoyed
laughing
that.
out loud the whole time. You were hilarious. Oh, it was all so funny.
You guys are the first people who have commented on my performance, so I'm thankful for hearing that. A lot of people are, and rightfully so. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Phil did such a great job. Caitlin did so great. Mike is hilarious in the movie," and they all deserve that credit too. But I'm just like, I'm doing something. Like
I think that it's so your character is so hilarious that he's just so worried about getting dinner ready and that the dinner is gonna taste so good. That's
he's very
so funny
single-mindedly. He's like Jack Sparrow. Like, just get to the pearl. That's all I want. I just want the pearl. Where's my pearl?
Oh my gosh, it was so funny.
Well, it's anytime you're watching something that is not like a big budget, even big budget by like indie standards, it's always like the first thing to go is acting usually. Because you can look past a lot if acting is good, and so it's like, okay, let's watch this movie. I hope it's good, and I don't have to like, try and figure something out to compliment or something like that. And then we watch it, we're like, oh, we just genuinely enjoyed that movie.
I mean, pretty immediately, it's like, yeah, this is great. I love it.
And the acting all around was really great.
Yeah.
But you were our favorite. We were busting.
And we're not just saying that because you're guessing on our podcast.
No, I've heard the compliments before, and I'm thankful for them. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
Are you in the next one?
I am. I'm very much in the next one.
Awesome.
Very good. Very good.
It's interesting. Every time we do a roll, I try to like almost do the polar opposite of what I did before. So the very first movie we played, I played myself, and I was like the main character in the movie, and I was just like, and then we got to An Intervention, and I was just like, I want to play somebody who's completely non-crucial to the plot, and basically if I could be cut from the movie, nobody would miss anything. That's what I want for this. and I was so gentle in that one that I was just like, okay, now I need to play somebody who makes people feel uncomfortable, and that's basically
good
the next one. And yeah, it is an odd character, and I hope
so
that
excited.
It works the same way. I don't know.
Well, we'll be looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, very excited.
Yes.
Notify
well, thanks
you guys
for
as soon
coming
as
on.
Cool.
And for those of you who want more of us, you got to go to patreon.com/MICAHMCCAW. Get yourself. This is the month of June for this episode, and so we did a special one-off episode where we covered The Kid Who Would Be King with one of our friends from high school.
Yep.
It's very funny. Definitely go check that out.
Also, wait, let me look.
Oh, yes.
I just got a short story published in Teleport Magazine. So if you want to read a spooky, scary story, go to teleportmagazine.com. And it's just under my name, and it's called What Belief Can and Cannot Do. So,
give him a little pitch, because it's like
it's kind of like a Twilight Zone episode is how I like to describe it. And it's two sisters at a carnival who go into this tent and pull the trigger of a gun that they are told will kill a random person that's not within their proximity, and that the story is about them wrestling with if they accept that as truth or not, and the guilt that might cause.
Well,
that's the elevator pitch.
Cool.
I'm reading it tomorrow. I'm telling you that right now. I'm gonna find it.
Cool. Well, see you later, audience. Next week it is. Oh no. Next week is Suicide Squad, folks. Bye.
If I can say one thing,
the
extended cut makes it 5% better.
Unless I am forced to, unless HBO doesn't have the theatrical, there's no way.
Look, it is not as much of a leap as the ultimate cut is for this one. I'll tell you that. So you may not need it.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week. Bye.